thank you all for agreeing to be on this panel. So for those of you who haven't been here for the past 2 days, inclusion is a big theme at this conference, and we wanted to weave it into every aspect of the conference experience, including our sponsorships. And so that's the topic that we want to discuss on this panel. We don't just have an obligation to include each other, but our companies, the places where we work, have an obligation to be inclusive towards their employees. So I'm going to first ask all the panelists to briefly introduce themselves.
I'm Jeffrey Lessel, but you can call me Gio. I'm from Planning Center, and it's kind of like a SaaS software for churches. This is our first tech conference to sponsor, so I'm super excited to be here. And come see us at the oversized booth if you have a chance in the sponsor panel. Get some awesome socks, some software for your feet.
I'm Ryan Laughlin, or Rofreg, if you know me from the internet. I'm one of the co-founders and the CTO of Splitwise, which is an app for splitting expenses with other people. We're also a first-time conference sponsor, so hey, bud. Yeah. We're based right here in Providence, so it's been totally delightful to just walk to the conference every day. Highly recommended if you can do it.
Hi, I'm Ufuk Kayserlioğlu. I'm an engineering manager on the Ruby and Rails infrastructure team, and I lead our efforts in working on the C Ruby, the Ruby language, and alternative Ruby implementations like Truffle Ruby.
Hi, I'm Tash Dennis-Stopoulos. I am a recruiter at Shopify, and yeah, we've got socks as well. Really got that buying software for your feet. That is very but yeah, we've been a long time partner and sponsor of RubyConf.
Awesome, thank you. It seems that if you leave this conference without at least one extra pair of socks, you have done it wrong. Okay, so we're gonna start with the topic of hiring. That's often like the first contact employees have with a company. So I wanted to ask, what does your company do to create an equitable and inclusive hiring process? And whoever wants to start can go for it.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. I think one thing that Splitwise moved to a while ago that I found really helpful and felt very good about is like paying people for the process of interviewing, especially take-home projects. I think there's a pretty unequal expectation traditionally in tech that like, oh, you probably have some side project that you've tinkered on, and many of us do, but also many of us don't have the privilege of having the time to do a bunch of stuff on the side or to do a new project for specifically a company just out of the goodness of our hearts. Like, at the end of the day, most of us need jobs in order to be paid in order to survive. And so if you're going to spend 4 or 5 hours doing something for us, you deserve to be compensated for that time. And so doing that and then making sure that regardless of who you are and whether or not you're moving on to the next stage, that we debrief that project with you and we talk you through it and like give you the courtesy of that and also the learning experience of that. Like even if you're not necessarily ending up on the Splitwise team, like it is an opportunity for us to get to know you. It's an opportunity for us to give you feedback on how you can continue to grow. It just feels much more human. So I think it's a much more pleasant experience for us and hopefully for the person on the other end of the experience as well.
I think for us, along those lines, we haven't got to the point where we're paying people at this point. But after every round of hiring, we go through and audit each step of the hiring process and make sure that we're trying to be as inclusive and diverse in every one of those steps, from sourcing all the way through to thinking through how much time people have. So, for example, during one of our last audits, we were talking through a take-home exercise that has a cap in terms of time. And I was like, just give people, as much time as they can so they can do as best they can or solve problems. And then someone else mentioned, and I hadn't even thought of this, someone else mentioned, well, that kind of allows people who have more free time to take advantage of that. And just even those conversations like, oh man, I didn't even consider that. People who aren't like me, who have extra free time, who are like a single parent who have to take care of children or other loved ones who just do not have that extra time, don't get a benefit of extra time over someone else who doesn't have that availability. So every hiring round, we do things like that, talk through with the people we hire in that round, how the process went, if there's anything else we can look at. And then as far as sourcing, like even things like this, sponsoring a conference, like going to where there's going to be a multitude of people represented that we can say, hey, we're hiring, come check out Planning Center. Even letting people know that Planning Center is a place that does Ruby. We've been doing Ruby since like 2006. So we have lots of opportunities within the company to come in. So yeah, everything from the source to the hire, we try to audit and make sure we're doing everything we can.
Yeah, at Shopify, this is something that we take very, very seriously at every step of the process. So even when it comes to training our interviewers, everyone must go through anti-bias training. That's part of the qualification of being an interviewer at Shopify. Whether you be someone that's meeting a candidate at a technical interview, coding exercise, through to a short list. Of course, hiring managers going through this as well. Also, for us, it's really important to understand a person behind the work. So we hire people, not resumes. And for that, we have an interview actually very early in our process, something we call the life story. And this is really an opportunity for us to understand a person, their experiences, what they're bringing to their work. And so really understanding that journey from a human perspective. This is something that I know a few companies do, kind of similar things to try to understand a person, but we really want to understand that around the scope of someone's work and how they've come to this point in time today. And of course, similarly too, I would say that at every stage of our process, like we're calibrating across with the interviewers to make sure that we are being aware of any bias that may be coming up. But again, with like ongoing training and ongoing conversation, we're trying to mitigate that from the very beginning. Also, too, talking about sourcing and outreach, like we make really huge efforts to change the ratio at the top of our candidate funnel. We know when we post jobs externally, a certain type of profile that's pretty overrepresented, let's face facts, will throw their hat in the ring, whether they're qualified or not. And so in order to really, again, stem against that, we put in a lot of work to do active sourcing, partnering with organizations, thinking long-term about the future of who we want to see in tech, and really reducing those barriers of entry to Shopify and to tech in general.
Awesome. Thank you for those varied answers. I really like the different types of approaches that you take. Gio, you talked a little bit about coding interviews specifically, and so I'd love to dig more into that. I think a big hot button topic in the past couple years has been lead code style interviews, whether or not they are good, whether or not they are inclusive. So I really want to dig into that. Do you use, and by lead code style interviews, I mean interviews that focus really hard on algorithms and data structures over like building software that you might build in your day-to-day work. Do you use them? Do you think they're inclusive? Why or why not?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually ship a whiteboard to the candidates and have them write on the white. No, I'm just kidding. We do not. No, we try to make that process as stress-free as possible. So I'm actually one of the two leaders of that last step in the process, which is our technical interview, so the highly technical stuff. So we cap that at an hour and a half. The first 45 minutes or so are really just us getting to know the candidate. What do you like to do? What are some things you like to do for fun? Tell us some of your technical backgrounds. And then, but even from the very beginning on our hellos, I go through, hey, this is what's going to happen in the next hour and a half. The first 45 minutes, we're going to talk. But I'm letting you know up front now that the last 45 minutes, we're going to go through a technical exercise together. It is fully open book. If you want to Google stuff, if you want to go to Stack Overflow, look at documentation, we're here to learn how you think and how you solve problems, not that you've memorized the entire Rails 6 API. We're here to answer questions you may have. So if you stumble onto something, just we're here to help you. We can ask leading questions. We're not necessarily going to give you the answer all the time, but at least we can help you get to a point where you're thinking in the right path. So as far as the exercises themselves, there's no algorithms. We're not trying to put in any gotchas. We're not trying to trick anyone. It's really just, hey, we have this Rails application, and it has a couple bugs. We'd like to add a few features. Let's go into Trello and get that done together. So we're really trying to be even an ally in that step itself, to be like, hey, it's like we're pairing here, and you're going to be the main driver of this exercise. So especially in the email saying, hey, you made it to the step, prepare. We've got this kind of a prep app that you can install beforehand, make sure your technology is up to date and has the available plugins that you need or whatever. So you do it on your laptop. You're comfortable with your editor. We're not forcing you into using Vim or anything like that if you're not familiar with it. You're just comfortable in your own environment. So we try to make it as comfortable as possible for the interviewer. And then after that, we send them a DoorDash gift card, because it's like, you know what? This is a rough process, and I know even if you're as calm as you can be, I know that before we got on the call, you were stressing about it. And I know that you gave us an hour and a half of your time. And so I'm going to buy you dinner. You know, we really appreciate their time, and we want to show that appreciation.
Okay. I joined Shopify about 4 years ago, and I had my interviews, around this time, 4 years ago. And I don't come from a computer science background. I joined Shopify as a senior developer. And I guess if Shopify were to ask me algorithmic questions, I would have failed outright. I have no idea how to balance binary trees, red-black trees, whatever. I still don't know. But I know that if I need to know that, if that's relevant to my work, I can just Google it, learn about it, and apply it. So what we look for at Shopify are people that can make a difference, are people that can solve a problem, but even more importantly, people who communicate well and who can work as part of a team. Because what we're doing at the end of the day is a team sport. But we all idolize people who are contributors individually. They're great, 10x engineers, whatever. There are some people who are really great engineers, obviously, but it doesn't matter if you're great and you're on your own if you can't work as part of a team and work with others. So that's the kind of things we're looking for. It's very similar to the process you've described. We do pairing exercises, we work on a real-life problem, and we look at how they're approaching the problem, not necessarily if they're able to solve it or not. Are they asking the right questions? Do they go and reference documentation online or not? What do they do when they get stuck? Those are the signals we're looking for, more than, can they memorize some algorithms or not?
Yeah, very much agreed on all fronts. I think the other note I'll add, echoing what you're saying, is that something I really appreciated about day one of the conference here was how much focus was on communication. And I think that a lot of traditional technical job interviewing processes really don't identify that at least half, if not more than half, the job of being an engineer is being able to communicate and being able to talk through a problem with other people and figure out how you want to approach it before you ever write a line of code. And so the more that your interviewing processes can involve things like pair programming, can involve things like talking through the design of an API together, or working with people from other teams. At Splitwise, we make sure that you actually interact with the people that you're going to interact with on a day-to-day basis, and that everything from the take-home to the full day resembles or represents the work that you're going to do once you're hired. Because that's a better experience for you and also a much more accurate picture for us as the company of what it's going to be like to work together. That's what we want to know at the end of the day. So I'm really glad that we're all on the same page there.
Yeah, if you don't mind piggybacking a little bit, beyond the actual code, entering code into your laptop as we're watching you, there are some questions that were instead of you tackling this card and fixing it or making this feature a thing, let's talk through how you would approach it and maybe decide together verbally how to fix this problem. So even if you don't have the code chops, even just talking through your ideas of architecture and API flows and things like that can be a huge thing. Because again, that goes back to the communication part of everything, because that is a big part of teams.
If I could snap after every one of those answers, I would, but that would be distracting, so I won't do it. Okay, so we've talked about hiring, bringing people onto our teams. And often, once we've hired someone and we're onboarding them, one of the first things they do is choose the benefits that they get. And benefits, turns out, can be inclusive or exclusive. If you came to the transgender issues panel yesterday, you will have heard that, for example, being able to get transition-related medical care is life-saving. It is life-saving care. And so I wanted to ask, what benefits does your company offer that you would consider inclusive? And then part two of this question, does your health insurance benefits cover gender transition?
Yeah, from Shopify, we offer a number of benefits. First off, we're a fully remote company, 100% remote, and part of that is baking in flexibility in a workday around also personal time off. We know that people, we don't just walk or talk the talk about work-life balance, like we walk the walk. So that's something that's really, really important. Of course, for American employees, healthcare coverage for employees, nominal fees that you would pay for any dependents in the household. Things like mental health care is actually, we have coverage on that too. In terms of gender transition care, we do have full coverage in the United States as well as in Canada. So for us, it's really important to ensure that every employee feels that they can bring their authentic selves to work and feel good in any respect for that.
I am certainly not an expert in this area, so I have a couple notes from the lead of our HR. But I can say, in terms of a general answer to that question, we also very much love our teams. We have paid Fridays off during the summer, and then during the rest of the year, it's every other week. So that allows you more time to spend with your family. We offer paid maternity, paternity, and bonding leave for various other alternative parenting options. There's every 5 years, if you get a sabbatical, a month-long paid sabbatical. So I had mine this summer. It was late because of COVID, but I remember when I came back, my manager was just like, you know what? Of course, Slack was running while I was out, as you may know, and emails were coming in. But he was like, when you're gone, delete Slack from your phone, delete it from your computer, turn off your email access, and when you get back, do that whole shift escape thing in a Slack where you clear all the red dots. So I didn't have to go back and look at anything. If somebody needed something from me, we were confident that they would come back and find me when I got back. So even things like that, just making sure that you are taking care of yourself outside of work is huge. In terms of healthcare, we do offer coverage for mental, behavioral, infertility, essential medical for transgender members. But as far as gender transition itself, apparently we had a long conversation yesterday with our healthcare providers, and that isn't covered fully yet, but that is something they're working on, and we expect within the coming year, I guess that's the calendar year, so 2023 sometime, we hope to have that fully covered as well.
Yeah, I can speak to, speaking as a queer person, healthcare for queer people can be really complicated. Our healthcare, we're on Blue Cross Blue Shield, does cover transition, but with a bunch of prerequisites, which is unfortunately pretty common for trans healthcare these days. I think you need to live and work as your gender for a year and have an official diagnosis of gender dysphoria or GID before you can, before procedures are covered. But yeah, I mean, being able to, one of the nice things about, so Splitwise a year and a half ago was only 10 people. We're now about 30. And so being able to make sure that Splitwise the company is a good place and not just Splitwise the app is a good place is really important to me, and you definitely see it in the people you work with. Echoing a lot of the things we've already said, like extended parental leave is really important for us. Our CEO is on parental leave right now. A bunch of other employees have taken parental leave in the last year. We offered 12 weeks and then another 6 if you personally gave birth. Our official work hours are 10 to 5, Monday through Friday. We know that work tends to bleed beyond that boundary a little bit. So if we want to aim for you to have an actual 40-hour work week, then it's important for the real boundary to be 35. Just kind of being realistic about how things like Slack and email and et cetera tend to bleed into our lives. We're hybrid, so we have about half of our folks are based here in Providence, about half are fully remote. Even the folks here in Providence work from home several days a week. So we have a mandatory work from home day on Wednesday to make sure that our remote culture doesn't treat remote folks as second-class citizens. Yeah, I think that's at least a brief overview of the highlights.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing all that. And, things aren't always where we want them to be, but I hope one thing that we take away from this panel is hearing how other people approach these benefits or other tools that they can use and take that back to our companies and work towards that ideal. Okay, so you've hired someone, they've signed up for benefits, it's the worst part of the year. And once they're on your team and actively one of your teammates, you want to create a culture that continues to include them. So as leaders on your companies or in your companies or on your teams, how can you identify issues of inclusion within your teams, and what tools can you use to rectify those?
We have been around since 2006. We've been around a while, and traditionally we've been people who kind of look like me. And we realized a number of years ago that that was an issue because we have a varied customer base. We need a varied a varied look and feel of our employees themselves. And so we went through a 9-month intensive process with some an outside consultancy to help us identify some blind spots that we might have and implement specific ways to address those blind spots. We've actually carried on from there yearly surveys to our employees for things like acceptance and the DEIB things that are within the past year have come up, and make sure that we have a strong pulse on where the company is and the things that we can continue to improve on. I think one of the best things that we did was realize that we're not doing it as well as we could do it, and then going out, making it a priority, spending the money, money speaks, spending the money to go out and make sure that someone else was helping us identify some of those blind spots. So if your company has the availability in terms of funds to do that, I know it's kind of a tricky time in tech right now, but we found that hugely beneficial for us. And even coming to a conference like this was a big step for us, and hopefully shows our employees internally and some of you as well that we are making some of those steps to rectify some of those issues we see in tech in general.
Yeah, I think for Splitwise at least, I think the bedrock of everything is psychological safety, right? In order to workplaces evolve over time and hopefully evolve in the right direction. And so in order to get the kind of feedback that you need about the ways in which you could be doing better, you need to be providing a safe enough environment to the people who work under you that they can give you honest feedback and trust that A, you're not going to retaliate against them for it, B, that you're actually going to listen to it and process it, and C, that you're actually going to make changes based on what they told you. And so at Splitwise, I think we have a really strong culture of iterating on culture frequently and trying to do frequent experiments about how we operate internally to make sure that, certainly in the last year, again, we grew from 10 to 30 people over the last 18 months. And a really big focus was not losing the kind of psychological safety that we had as a group of 10 that knew each other really well and trusted each other and could give each other hard feedback about what was or wasn't working in terms of it being a positive workplace and doing our jobs well. And I think we've managed to keep that. And part of that is the hiring process, making sure to evaluate folks not just on, again, their technical chops, but how do you communicate? How do you respect your teammates? How do you fit into this vision of a Splitwise that continues to grow in a global and inclusive way? And so, yeah, I think that if there's a specific tip, it's basically to not be content, especially if you are in a position of power or privilege, to feel the discomfort of where you are not meeting your ideals and to make sure that you are making small and steady improvements. To go back to the zen of incremental automation talk, you don't have to do it all at once. Find little ways to make little changes and then evaluate whether those little changes worked and what the next little changes should be.
So one of the important, the core of inclusivity for me is for people to be able to bring their voices to the conversation. And as an engineering manager, one of the things that I try to do is to look out for who's able to bring their voices to any conversation, what the power dynamics are like, and who's not able to speak or speak up when necessary. So that, that observation, that kind of pattern matching, being able to read between the lines of social situations or conversations is very important. I think that's one of the tricks I use as an engineering manager. And also listening. But in order for people to talk to you, like you said, you need to create a safe environment. And for an engineering manager, that means building trust with your reports so that they're comfortable opening up to you and they're comfortable sharing their problems or their complaints or their successes and wins at the same time, so that you can understand what their journey is like and how are they having a good time or bad time? Are they able to bring their voice to the conversation? And then to, basically fix if there are any problems. Those are the tricks I use.
Yeah, to add one more little bit of flavor there, something I found really interesting in Dr. Tannenbaum's talk on Monday evening was the ways in which some of the techniques and tips that she was giving, I think, are important to consider if you are speaking from a position of relative power. In particular, her note on getting rid of so-called weasel words like I think or I believe or etc. is actually a tool to be used, I think, constructively if you are speaking from a place of power, to try to be transparent with the people that you're working with, that like this is not an edict from on high, or this is a thing that you have uncertainty about, or this is a thing that you want feedback on. And so I think if you find yourself higher in the hierarchy, being conscious that you speak in a context, right? Like you have power that the people underneath you do not. And the way that your words are received are different than if you said them from a different position within the organization. And so just kind of making the note that like most advice you will get, including from us, is not one size fits all. Like figure out what fits with your team and how to hear each other and respond to each other in the way that humans should.
If you don't mind, I would like to add one more thing as well. It seems that up here we've got different representative sizes of companies. So Shopify's pretty big. We're like 120. You guys are around 30. But there's a theme there of being intentional about realizing where your blind spots are and being intentional about trying to rectify those and treating people as human beings. So no matter how big the company is, how big your team is, I think that overall, if it's just one thing, I think that could be the thing you take away from that.
Yes, big snaps to that. Okay, we're going to do a lightning round, 15 seconds. What is one thing that you experience at work that makes you feel included?
My management peer group. Super supportive group, and every time we have meetings with them, I feel supported and included and heard. So I want to thank them from here.
For us, we have a set one-on-one schedule with our managers and with any direct reports we have. And so those are times where we can bring up any concerns or thoughts we have and help them get higher up as needed. So that's important to me.
I'll call out a very specific thank you. I gave a RailsConf talk in 2018 that I'm very proud of on checkups. The week before that, I had to take the entire week off for mental health because there was enough going on in my life that I was having a really, really hard time. And my good friend and colleague and coworker, Jess, held down the fort in that week, and that was incredibly valuable to me, and I'm really, really appreciative.
Yeah, just on that theme, I actually talked to my manager, this was 2 weeks ago, and said that I needed to take a mental health day. And I actually never said that out loud before. And the reception was just so warm, and she actually said, like, I'm glad that you're asking me for what you need. And that made me feel tremendously supported. So yeah, just gestures like that are huge. In general, too, I'm a part of the women's ERG group, like just not necessarily like organizing things, but I find like that space too has been tremendously supportive for me in my journey at Shopify.
Awesome. Thank you all so much, both for sponsoring RubyConf Mini and for being on this panel. For the audience, I hope you've taken away some things you can bring back to your companies to advocate for, to make the whole culture of the Ruby community more inclusive. So please, a round of applause for our panelists.